My two half-sisters are older than me, 26 and 27 now, and we technically share the same mother. But that's probably the only thing we truly had in common. Their dad was my mom's first husband. After she left him, she eventually met my father, fell in love, and had me. And just like that, I was added to a family that already had its own rhythm, its own story, one I wasn't part of. I think people assume siblings just naturally bond because they live under the same roof. But it doesn't always work that way. My sisters were close in age, just a year apart, and had years together before I was even born. They were like one single person split into two bodies, finishing each other's sentences, copying each other's style, fighting and making up within minutes. They had their own orbit. I was just somewhere nearby, spinning outside it. As a child, I tried so hard to belong. I'd follow them from room to room, sit close when they watched TV, laugh at jokes I didn't understand just to feel included. But most of the time, they barely acknowledged I was there. Not out of cruelty, more like indifference. I was too young to do what they did, too different to be fun, and too new to be part of the memories they already shared. And when I did try to wedge myself into their world, it was usually because my mom had told them to include me. "Don't leave your sister out," she'd say. So they'd sigh and let me tag along, but never with them, never really in it. I remember one time they were going to the park. I was around 6, maybe. My mom told them I should go too. One of them muttered, "She's going to slow us down," and the other just shrugged. The whole walk there, they talked over my head about things I didn't know. I held the edge of one of their jackets like a kid desperate not to get lost. But I already felt like I was. That's how it always felt. Like I was on the outside looking in. Like a guest in their world. My sisters weren't mean. They weren't abusive. But there's a particular kind of pain in being unnoticed by people who are supposed to love you. It teaches you how to make yourself small. Teaches you not to expect too much. And the worst part? As a kid, I blamed myself for not being likable enough to be loved the same way. As the years passed, that quiet exclusion didn't go away. It just evolved. They grew into teenagers, and their bond only deepened in ways I couldn't compete with. They shared clothes, playlists, makeup tips, even crushes. Their laughter behind closed doors became more constant, more secretive. They started locking their bedroom door, not out of malice, but because they didn't think twice about including me. I wasn't part of those conversations. I wasn't part of their world. They took trips to the mall together, came home with matching outfits, filmed silly videos in the backyard while I watched from the kitchen window. If I asked where they were going, I usually got a distracted out or with friends. No invitation, no room for a third. Sometimes I'd hear them say my name behind a closed door, but by the time I walked in, they'd switch topics or go quiet. You'd think I would get angry. But mostly, I just felt invisible. At school, when teachers or friends asked about my siblings, I always smiled and said, "Yeah, I have 2 older sisters." I made it sound like we were close, because that's what people expect. But inside, it felt like I was lying. I was the afterthought, the add-on, the footnote at the bottom of their shared story. Birthdays only made that more obvious. Every year, they went all out for each other. Creative gifts, homemade desserts, balloons, loud music, goofy inside jokes. They filmed everything for their socials and posted long captions about my other half. When it was my birthday, it was usually just a quick happy birthday in passing, maybe a reposted meme if I was lucky. One year, I went all out for them. Baked a cake from scratch, decorated the living room with handmade signs, even made a playlist of songs they both loved. A few weeks later, my birthday came and went. They were out with their friends. They didn't even text me until late that night. I remember sitting on the couch, staring at the cake my mom had picked up on the way home from work, telling myself it didn't matter, that it was fine, that I was used to it. But it did matter. No matter how many times I tried to convince myself otherwise, it hurt. Every single time. And then came the tattoos. They posted a photo online. Close-up shots of delicate matching ink just below their ribs. Thin black cursive that read, "One of two." That line hit harder than anything before. Not three, not sisters, just two. They branded themselves as a duo, and they wanted the whole world to know it. That was the moment something inside me stopped reaching. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't even feel like a decision. It just settled, like the silence that comes after a storm. I wasn't angry. I wasn't jealous. I was just done hoping they'd ever see me as part of them. And in a way, that realization brought a strange kind of peace. Not the kind you celebrate. The kind you carry quietly, like a scar that finally stops aching. From that point on, I started to pull away. Not out of bitterness, but as a way of self-preservation. I stopped initiating group texts, stopped asking if they wanted to hang out, stopped trying to wedge myself into conversations that weren't meant for me. And unsurprisingly, they didn't notice. Or if they did, they never said anything. In the years that followed, the distance only grew. I moved out for college, made new friends, built my own space. One where I didn't feel like a shadow trailing behind someone else's spotlight. But despite everything, a small part of me still hoped for something. A flicker of change, a moment of recognition. Maybe it's human nature. That need for belonging runs deeper than logic. So for my 23rd birthday, I threw a small get-together at my apartment. Nothing extravagant, just some close friends, snacks, a playlist of songs I actually liked. People who made me feel seen. And for the first time in a long time, I felt okay. Not amazing, not healed, but okay. I didn't invite my sisters, not out of revenge. I just didn't think of them. And even if I had, I wasn't sure what the point would be. They hadn't invited me to their birthdays in years, not even once. And somehow that had become normal. But of course, word got back to my mom. She called me the next morning, her voice already tight with disappointment. "You didn't invite your sisters?" she asked, like it was some kind of betrayal. I didn't want to get into it, so I just said, "I didn't think of it." "You expect me to believe that?" she snapped. "You forgot you had sisters?" That's when something in me, something long held and carefully managed, slipped. "No," I said. "I didn't forget. I just stopped pretending they were ever really mine." The silence on the other end was heavy. And then came the familiar disappointment, the scolding, the guilt trip. "That's a horrible thing to say," she told me. "They're your sisters, blood. You should be moving past all of this." But I wasn't angry when I replied. I wasn't trying to hurt her. I just told the truth. "I've never felt like I had sisters," I said. "Not really. They have each other. They always have. I was just the extra kid you had later, and that's okay. But I'm done pretending it's something else." My mom didn't take that well. She went quiet for a few seconds, like she didn't know which emotion to land on. Frustration, sadness, disbelief. Then she said something that stuck with me more than I expected. "I talked to them so many times about including you. I hoped it would change." It was the first time she admitted trying. The first time she didn't pretend like everything had been fine all along. And I'll give her credit for that. But it didn't make the years of silence any easier to swallow. She told me she was angry. At them, but also at me. Angry that I'd given up, that I'd said out loud what she was afraid to believe, that the damage might be permanent, that maybe it had never been fixable to begin with. She said it was cruel of me to declare I had no sisters, that it wasn't fair to erase the bond even if it was flawed. But I wasn't erasing anything. I was just calling it what it was. Because the truth is, You can't build a bond on one person's effort. You can't force your way into a dynamic that was never meant to hold you. And most of all, you can't mourn the loss of a relationship that never really existed in the first place. I told her I wasn't mad at them. Not anymore. I had been, for a long time. I'd cried over it more nights than I could count. But these days, all I felt was distance and peace. A quiet, unfamiliar kind of peace that came from no longer needing something I was never going to get. She didn't know what to say to that. And honestly, I didn't need her to. I wasn't looking for validation. I wasn't trying to win the conversation. I just wanted to tell my side, maybe for the first time ever. Since then, things have been quieter. My sisters still don't reach out. My mom still tries to bridge the gap sometimes, but I don't let it pull me back in. Because I've learned that some relationships don't need closure. They just need space. And I'm finally okay with giving it to them. Sometimes I catch myself wondering how different things could have been if they had included me just once in a while. Not everything, not even the big things. Just a seat at the table, a text saying, "Hey, we're grabbing coffee, wanna come?" A message on my birthday that wasn't just a generic group chat gif. A moment where I felt like a sister, not a guest in their lives. But the more I've grown, the more I've realized. Their distance wasn't about hatred or cruelty. It was just indifference. And in many ways, indifference cuts deeper. Hate at least acknowledges your presence. Indifference erases you without a second thought. And maybe that's what hurt most of all. That I wasn't important enough to leave out on purpose. I was simply forgotten. Even now, people assume I'm close with them. "You have 2 sisters, right? That must be fun." And I smile and nod, because it's easier than explaining the truth. Easier than unpacking years of quiet rejection and self-rewriting. I've become fluent in masking disappointment, in pretending that being left out was somehow a choice I made. But it wasn't. I tried. I tried so hard, for so long, and now, I'm just learning how to stop trying. It's a slow process. Unlearning the need to be chosen by people who never looked my way. But it's freeing too. Because once you stop chasing people who don't see you, you start seeing yourself more clearly. And that version of me, the one who no longer waits by the phone, no longer scans social media for signs of inclusion, she's stronger than I expected. The shift didn't happen overnight. Letting go of that hope, the one I carried around like a secret, took time. At first, I told myself I was just taking a step back. That maybe they'd notice my absence. Maybe it would spark some reflection. But nothing came. No message, no call, no curiosity about why I'd gone quiet. So I sat with that silence. I watched it stretch across months, then years. At some point, it became background noise, always there, but no longer unbearable. And in that quiet, I started building something new. A version of family that wasn't defined by blood or obligation. It came in small ways. A friend who remembered how I liked my coffee. A roommate who made space for my bad days. A coworker who checked in when I missed a shift. These weren't grand gestures, just little, consistent reminders that I mattered. That I wasn't invisible. And slowly, I started letting those moments carry more weight than the ones that came before. I stopped measuring love by the people who withheld it and started recognizing it in the ones who gave it freely. Without being asked, without keeping score. It felt like learning a new language, one rooted in presence, not proximity. There was a kind of power in that shift. A quiet one. Not loud or angry. Just solid. Like finally understanding that you don't need someone's permission to move on. I stopped trying to squeeze myself into memories that didn't want me and instead started creating new ones. Ones where I didn't have to question if I belonged in the photo. I began showing up more fully in my own life, saying yes to people who saw me, who made space for me, who didn't treat me like an optional afterthought. And little by little, the ache of being excluded was replaced by something softer, a kind of acceptance I never thought I'd find. Even family gatherings started to feel different. I'd still see them sometimes. My sisters, at holidays or shared events. We'd say hi, maybe smile. But that's all it ever was. A polite exchange between people who shared a childhood roof but not a history of love. And yet, for once, I didn't walk away from those moments feeling lesser. I didn't shrink inside. Because I knew, with everything in me, that I had outgrown the need for their approval. I wasn't the lonely little girl waiting for someone to invite her in. I was someone who had learned how to stand alone and stay standing. That realization didn't come with fireworks or some big emotional breakthrough. It just settled in one day, quiet and true. Like a truth that had always been there, waiting for me to be ready to believe it. So now, when people ask if I have siblings, I still say yes, because I do. But I no longer feel the need to explain why we're not close, or why their names don't show up in my call log, or why I don't send them birthday texts. It's not bitterness. It's just honesty. Not every family bond is built to last. Some are fragile, some are one-sided, and some, like ours, were never really formed at all. And that's not my fault. I've stopped carrying that guilt like it was mine to fix. I've also stopped hoping for some dramatic reconciliation, some last-minute realization where they suddenly see me. Maybe that's possible in movies. But in real life, healing often looks like letting go. Not because you're giving up, but because you finally understand your worth doesn't depend on being chosen. And the truth is, I've already been chosen. By people who don't share my blood but see me clearly. By friends who show up without being asked. By the life I've built, one filled with moments that feel like home. So no, I'm not angry. I'm not even sad anymore. I'm just free.